Friends, welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. We got a true treat today. A business owner, a job creator, and just all around good guy. My friend, Shawn Godwin. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Appreciate you having me.
Man, thank you for joining me, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for joining. I'm looking forward to this. So, man, you're into a lot. And you got a pretty big business and a lot going on and a lot of people that you employ. But I want to start right at the beginning. Tell me about growing up. Where'd you grow up at?
I'm from Conway. So I went to Conway High School. Graduated there in the late 80s. And when I got out of Conway High School, I went to the University of South Carolina. Spent a good 5 years up there trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And after I graduated in business management, my dad offered me a job right back in Conway. And so I moved back to Conway, and it was a family business that he had started in the late 80s, but my grandfather was in that space in the 60s doing the same thing, which is a kind of the road construction business, asphalt paving, and that type of thing. So once I got out of college and started working with him, we just kind of started, we had a very small asphalt paving company, had about 20 employees, and now we've kind of grown it to where it's kind of spread around all of South Carolina. But it's been a great experience, just kind of working in a family business and working with those who you care about. And as you've grown your business over the years, you see that family really does matter.
Absolutely. And Shawn, you just said it, but like growing up, third generation asphalt business owner, construction owner. Did you work in it during the summers? Did you, get a little taste of it during the summers,
Yeah, I did. So I worked in it just enough in the summers to know I really didn't want to do it.
Oh, wow.
When I went off to college, I was thinking I kind of wanted to get into the banking business.
Okay.
So I graduated kind of within business management and finance. But yeah, in the summer times, my grandfather, my father, had me out there every summer shoveling asphalt or riding a piece of equipment or doing whatever, he basically made me go to work every day, but it was fun. But I tell you, I really felt like that's not really something I wanted to do. I felt like if I got to go to college, I wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But what I learned pretty quickly is there is nothing more important than a family member or starting a business that you can then now go in and work in, because it is hard. Starting a business from scratch, very difficult. And fortunately for me, my dad kind of already had something set up for me, and I was able to just kind of slide right in and then just kind of work alongside of him, as a mentor, somebody that kind of teach me the business, some of the things not to do, things to do, and that makes it so much easier when you're trying to build and grow a business.
Absolutely. I just find it very interesting. I've even learned with you in this conversation. So you went to college. It wasn't your plan to come to the construction business.
It was not. No.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually got a job offer out of college at a bank. Working. You kind of start your way up in a bank, starting as a teller, and kind of work your through way.
Right.
And they offered me $18,000 a year. My dad offered me $20,000, so I immediately took the job working for him. Yeah, so
that's great.
All it took was a little bit of money to persuade me to start digging ditches again.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, and anybody that's from Horry County know the Godwins and know asphalt, and your company's name is.
It's Palmetto Corp.
Palmetto Corp, but asphalt is your thing, man. And road building, and you said your father and grandfather was in it, and it's done a lot. And I admire y'all, and anybody who knows constructions, knows the name and the quality and all y'all do, man. So thank you for that. Jumping back to your dad just a minute, I know him and just. But man, he was a Marine like myself, so just thank you for his service, man. And
definitely
tell us about your mom and what she did growing up.
So really, when she got out of high school, she started working for Autry Telephone, and she worked there for 30 years, and eventually ended up retiring from Autry Telephone. She was the mom who. Worked, taking care of us, and then getting up early in the mornings, getting everything prepped for us to go to school, and then she would go off to work all day, and then at the end of her work day, she'd come back home and prepare dinners, one thing and the other. She was truly the working mom.
Wow.
So as a kid growing up, that's just pretty much what I thought all moms did. Was they would take care of you, they would go work, and their fathers would go work, and you all come back and be a family together. So that was kind of what I grew up in, and that's all I ever really knew.
Yeah. So hard work it's just something that's been instilled from your parents from day one. I mean, you've seen it modeled, hadn't you, buddy?
I have, no doubt.
Wow. Okay, so graduate. So bring us into your family now. You're married. Tell me about your family now.
So when I got out of college, it was really about focusing on work, and I spent a good portion of my years after college working in the business, growing the business, expanding, looking for opportunities for growth. And then I guess it was in 2004, I met my wife. She ended up coming to a party I was having at my house. And I met her through a mutual friend, and we immediately met and started dating. And we dated for about 2 years, decided to get married, had our first child, Sabrina, who's she's 18 now. She's a freshman at the University of South Carolina. Then a couple years later, we had our second daughter, Simone, and she's 16, and she's a junior at Myrtle Beach High School. So yeah, that's our family, and my wife's name's Nikki. But we have a great relationship and a great family, and we're very close.
That's awesome. Awesome. So how many years you married?
So we've been married, this will be 20 years this year.
20 years. So what's some marriage advice you'd give to everybody out there? Any quick advice?
Compromise, for sure.
Good. I like it.
Understanding that it's a team effort. It takes a clan to make it work, from the kids to the wife to the dad, everybody to really make it work. If you understand that compromise, I think you'll help. It definitely helps having a successful marriage, for sure.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I remember, Shawn, you're a little bit ahead of me, but I remember one of the first times I saw you, I remember it was a Saturday morning. We're in the middle of winter now, the beach, and I was with my dad. We went to a job site, dead of winter on Saturday, and you were on a paver in a little parking lot by yourself. And I was like, Dad, isn't that the owner's son? He's like, son, this is construction. The job must go on. And it was my first vision of you, and it's probably a lot of people, see how big your company is now, but it really does go back to basics, that it's kind of ingrained. That's part of being a business owner. You got to do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Typically what you find is in smaller businesses, you have to, everybody wears every hat, so it's kind of one of those scenarios where one day you may be working on a piece of equipment, the next day you may be in the office, doing payroll, and the next day you may be out there trying to, sell a customer, convincing them to try to come work, to allow you to do work for them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do wear all the hats when you're a smaller business, but as you grow and you expand, opportunities come up where you can then hire certain individuals who are better than you at doing those certain things, because there's a lot of equipment operators out there a whole lot better than I am, and it's been a while since I've been on equipment on a day-to-day basis, so we probably want to keep it that way. So I got some great operators, so I hope it stays that way. But it allows you, as you grow and expand, to hire these different positions that those individuals can do things smarter, faster than you can. Yeah,
but I think it's good that you do have those experiences to lean back on, just that you've got some reference points. Have you found that serves you well?
Yeah, it is. I think you get to a point where if you've done it before, you can understand what they're dealing with and some of the trials that they have to deal with and understand. So yeah, I definitely think it helps. I don't think it's something that you have to do. I think it's very possible, that you could run the business we have just by being humble and open-minded and willing to listen to people smarter than you. So I think there's multiple different paths to get to where you're running a company like ours. But yeah, it definitely helps if you've been it and experienced it and learned it and lived it.
Yeah, you've always been so gracious with your time, and I think that. People see a picture of success here, but you're a learner, and I learn from you, and you're always very kind to give me advice and stuff. And you sharing the story, even when you were expanding out of Autry County and went to Florence. I remember you shared a story with me, and you correct me at any point, but you actually moved to Florence. I mean, you were that invested. I remember you telling me building that division out there. Tell me a little bit about that and your mindset, and just that was another step, to do that.
Yeah, in our space, it's really about opportunities. It's easy to say, oh gosh, we should just expand into that market or grow into that market or set up an operation in a different location. But you really got to understand, is those areas, do they need more competition, or do they need, somebody to go into that space? And fortunately for us, the Florence market was a market we weren't in at the time, and they needed some more competition in that market. So I moved to Florence. We bought an asphalt plant. We went and set it up, and I bought an apartment there and stayed there while we were trying to build that market. And what I learned is when you live there every day, you kind of get to know the people who are working in that area. You get to know the market. You get to understand the competitors. You get to understand who can be your ally, who can't. You learn all those things, which is kind of why even today, when we go set up an office or put another asphalt plant in a different market, we want to make sure the individual who's running that particular business business unit for us is from that market, live in that market. That is our market. They feel like it's their home and it's their business. And when they feel like it's their business, it's easy for them to kind of wrap their arms around it and make it work. And those that we have running in different markets totally understand those markets better than I do, and that's why they're successful.
Wow. So, Shawn, you third generation, but you've really grown the business. And I've asked you this question before. Did you have a vision, or how did it evolve to where you're at now? And tell us a little bit, maybe your size, who you employ, what y'all do.
So we have a little over 1,000 employees, and we have offices. We have one in Conway, and we have one in Florence. We have one in Bishopville. We have one in Lugoff. We have one in Ridgeway, which is in Fairfield County. We have one down in Orangeburg. We have one in the upstate in Greer. And each of those markets have, approximately 200 employees at each one. And, but they're all kind of individual business units. And every time we kind of expanded and moved to a different area, it was really about opportunities. We saw that maybe a particular market was underserved, or maybe it was a situation where there was a large project that came into that area and we would bid on it, we would get the job, and then we would kind of set up shop there. Sometimes it may have been our thought process was, maybe this is just going to be temporary. Maybe we'll just move there for this job, get it done, and then, close up shop, move somewhere else. But in each situation, we've been able to build kind of really good talent pool, build good people running the operations there. And when you do that, you can basically move into an area and stay there, which is what we've been able to do.
That's good. Would you say, and you said it, but like, good people is a key to it, adding to your team, and building a company out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than cliche. I mean, everybody will say that, but it's for real. I mean, there's no way in the world that anybody can run a business, by themselves without help from others. And it's the same in our business. We've got great people from flagmen to operators to accountants to estimators and everywhere in between. And yeah, no doubt, you've got to have great people.
Takes everybody.
Yes, for sure.
Takes everybody. In a little bit more specific, I just want to say thank you, and I think our areas serve, you do two things for our area. You're a job provider, and you're putting asphalt on roads. And last time I checked, people don't want to drive on dirt roads no more. So you're providing the service we want. And specifically in the DOT space, if we could talk about that. Sure. I think it'd be really good for our listeners to understand that, Shawn, how, certainly you're not the only one there, but how that works to get a DOT project in South Carolina. Talk to them about the bidding process, or what you've got to do to get there, and how that bidding process goes, so they'll just know how transparent it is, because we do know how,
sure.
There's a process to it.
Yeah, there's definitely a process. It kind of starts with what's called the pre-qualification process. So you basically have to go in and almost kind of prove to the DOT, that one, you've got the insurance, you've got the bonding capacity, you've got the ability to be able to do the work. And then once basically you're pre-qualified, there'll be other contractors who are pre-qualified as well. And then what they'll do is they'll put what's called a solicitation to bid, which says, hey, we've got this road that's coming up, and we want you to give us a price on bidding it, and that bid's going to be submitted in next month. And then all the people who are interested in putting together a price on that job will look at it, they'll dive into the details, they'll estimate on what it's going to cost. And basically it's kind of an interesting process. We do everything electronically online. So the second Tuesday of every month within the DOT is what we call bid day. So we solicit our prices into the DOT. It's done electronically, and we do that by 2:00, and then by 2:15 they literally send the results back to us and say, hey, you were low bid. And in the space we play in, it is strictly about low bid. They've already pre-qualified you. They basically look at you and say, you guys are all the same. So now it comes down to low price. So then whoever's cheapest, that's what it is. It could be $1 cheaper. It doesn't matter. You're the one who gets the project. Again, assuming it's under budget, or whatever. Yeah. But assuming all those things are the case, that's how they award those projects. And then once you get them awarded, you basically go through the process of having pre-constructions and meeting with the DOT, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then you go build the road for the DOT. And then once that's done, you get your when it's finished, they pay you, and you turn the road back over to the DOT.
That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that process, just so that the everyday taxpayer knows that they're just not giving out the contracts to who they want. There is a process, right. and it is competitive, that the state wants the cheapest price, but they do want a contractor that is qualified,
For sure.
And also, I think you said a point that's very important that everybody should know, is that it's bonded. I mean, you got to guarantee that you're going to provide a product to the DOT. Is that right, Shawn?
Yeah, it's basically like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
The DOT will buy this bond. You basically provide it to them, and it says, hey, I'm going to do this job for $100, and the bond or your insurance company says, hey, if for some reason, Palmetto's, goes out of business, we're going to still make sure it only costs the DOT $100.
Yeah.
And the DOT pays for that. That's their bond. That's their insurance policy where they feel comfortable they're going to get it done for that price you submitted.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Also, another note just on that, and we'll move off of that, is sometimes you might be the only contractor that submits a bid. And I've seen times where the DOT won't even award it. They'll put it back out again. Is that right? I mean,
yeah, it happens all the time. Not all the time, but I mean, at times, if for some reason there's if a job doesn't fit in a lot of people's different schedules because they got too much work or they're don't really like it or whatever, there may be only one bid on a particular job. Typically what ends up happening is the DOT won't award it, and then they'll basically wait for another time to put it back out for bid. Because typically what they want is one, they want to make sure that they're getting a good competitive bid, and one, they've got a budget on these projects just like everything else is, and if the price that comes in whatever budget, they won't award it.
Yeah, and that should give our taxpayers the feel good. I mean, that the DOT.
They pinch the pennies, I promise you.
Oh, that's good. Some notable projects that your company's working on. I mean, most people in Autry County have drove on 501. You've done, I think, the first section of the widening. You're working on it now. So the man you see sitting in front of you, he's adding to our relief in South Carolina. I wish they'd go ahead and do the whole thing, but instead of little segments. But you're making life better for people in Autry County. It's got to feel good, man. I mean, to know that. Well,
they do pay me to do them, so I'm not really doing it out of goodness of my heart, but I am trying to get it done.
But they are getting something for their dollar.
That's
they
right.
On, right? And I also just makes me think, because we do have people in construction space, we do have people working at night, we do have flagmen, we like everybody to slow down, be careful. To realize that our employees do have families, to be careful. We want them to go home to their family every day, right?
No doubt, no doubt. We preach it every day, to our employees to make sure, especially when you're out there doing night work, that your head really needs to be on a swivel. A lot of these guys that get on these projects, especially these jobs, take 501 for example, that whole job has to be done at night. So we can't really work in the daytime on that particular project, and because of that, you may have guys that'll be out there for 2 years every night working at night, and they're like the rest of us. They get comfortable, they get a little bit complacent sometimes, and when that happens, that's when you get in trouble from a safety standpoint. So we are always hopeful that the driving public understands that our people are out there trying to make these roads better, and we do appreciate it every time they slow down, and in those work zones it definitely makes a difference to our employees, and we try to do the same for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. Shawn, tell me a little bit, what are some challenges that you face in business, or that we need to do in our area or in the state to make business better? Bring it back down to it. You're a job creator, so you're adding to our area, but what's something that we can do to make it easier, that you need, or that maybe the construction industry is lobbying for?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things. Our workforce is always something we're needing. We try to do a lot of training, internal training, because we want the individuals to be in a position where you are wanting to work out, in the elements, when it's cold, when it's hot, could be night, could be day. That's got to be something you really want to do. So to find those individuals that are willing to do that, from a workforce standpoint, we really look at the individuals who go to the trade schools, but we're also taking them right out of high school, and we'll train them, within, because the more people we have that will come and work in our space, the more we can take advantage of opportunities that come out there. The last thing you don't want to have is not have the workforce to be able to do the projects that are coming. Fortunate for us now, we've been able to develop that workforce and keep it going, and I think that's a big part of why we've been able to kind of grow and expand, is by training that workforce. There's other things. There's tort reform, for example. There's a lot of liability that we have driving up and down these roads, not just the individual taxpayer who's doing it, but also us who are in that space. And we have to buy insurance to cover us out there, and there's a lot of a liability that we have that, in my opinion, is a little more liability than we should be exposed to. There is a situation where there's attorneys out there who in some cases may be misrepresenting accidents or damages or one thing or another to try to get higher basically funding for some of these accidents that happen. When that happens, it really just creates an extra cost that gets associated with our insurance costs costs, which ultimately drives up the cost of the roads, which ultimately drives up taxes. So it's kind of just an ongoing cycle that I think something needs to be done about. And some of the legislators that are there now are trying to make some reforms in that, because you see it in the bars where having to pay our insurance and having to close, or the restaurants, one thing or another. So I think the more we work as a coalition, to try to cut down on the the needless lawsuits that are out there, I think that'll help with the cost associated with building roads and the cost of everything else associated with what we do.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I think tort reform, it can be confusing, right? If you don't know what it is. And I think in the construction industry, let's just use it for an example, what you just says, I don't know a construction owner, Shawn, that say we're involved in an accident, if we're responsible, we have no problems paying it. For sure. But the laws are just not set up. It's basically, we just had a change. Before this year, you could be 2%, have 2% that you were liable, but you had to pay the whole bill, even if somebody else was more responsible, mainly because we got a bigger insurance policy. Yeah. That's unfair.
All because you had the ability to pay. It should not be based on your ability to pay.
Yeah.
It should be based on your level of liability.
Yeah. Now, we had a little shift last year. Tort reform was talked about in the legislature a good bit. So this year, if we're 50% or greater, we could still be on, construction could still be on the hook for the full amount. But Shawn, that's still really not fair, is it?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either. I think if we brought it down to a person's home, if they've done the damage, no problem paying it. But if they're 48%, they only want to pay 48%.
Right.
So it's confusing, but it's important because you said it. It gets passed down to asphalt roads, right?
Yep.
To stay in business, you got to be able to cover your insurance costs, right?
It does. We basically, that's one of the first things we look at, is what is our overhead expense, and our insurance coverage goes straight into that. And if our overhead expense is higher, we ultimately just go have to charge more for the roads.
Yeah, and we talk about construction, but it could be a store owner, it could be a restaurant owner. The tort reform and the insurance affects any business owner, and I want to say job creator per se.
For sure, it does.
Well, good deal. Well, thank you for talking about that. We got a few more minutes, but I want to know a little about Shawn. What do you enjoy doing outside of work?
Well, other than spending time with my family, I play a lot of sports. So I play a lot of basketball, a lot of tennis, a lot of volleyball. Work out pretty, religiously, pretty consistently, and that's probably what I do the most. And travel. My wife and I love traveling and spending time. Visiting our daughter who's at college now. We get to see her, going to football games. On Friday nights we'll be watching my daughter at Myrtle Beach High cheering on the sidelines, and then Saturday morning we'll drive up to Columbia and go tailgate and see my daughter up there. So that's a lot of what we do now.
That's good. And Shawn said work out, but honestly, this guy is in great shape, and he's got a famous workout group that meets early in the morning at his house. And Shawn invited me to go one day, and I thought I was in pretty good shape. I quickly found out I was not in shape. This man was subtle, and he wore me out. It's called the House of Pain at Shawn's house. So,
well, I apologize for that, because typically what I like to do is first, especially for the newcomers, I like to make sure the newcomers can stay for a week or two before I really hit it hard. But I apologize. Next time you come, I'll try to cut it down a little bit if you like.
Shawn, they can look at your life and see success or whatever, but it's got to be intentional. It just doesn't happen, right, buddy? Can you speak to that as, having a plan or what you want to do, or just advice you'd give somebody coming out of school where they want to accomplish something in life? That's a big question.
I will say having a plan is great, but one of the first things we talked about is I didn't really had the plan working in the banks and decided to switch courses. So it is nice to have a plan and be able to follow through with that plan. But sometimes I think it's just having the willingness to turn, change, adapt if you need to, but really ultimately figuring out something you really want to do. And once you kind of get into something and really focusing on it and showing up every day, it's the small little things. Look at, it's not looking for the, not the job, jumping here and there. Really going to go work for a company that you really see some growth and some opportunity with, or if you have the passion of starting your own thing, start your own business, whatever it is, but learn that business, whatever it is, really well enough that you can become the expert in that particular business. And when somebody asks about that, whatever that thing is, you're the ones who raise your hand and say, hey, I can help you in that. And if you kind of get into the mindset of like, what can I do to help others? The rest of it will just kind of figure itself out. But success comes in a bunch of different ways. You can't look at success just strictly on money. It's got to be happiness. It's got to be able to, yeah, sure, you got to be able to make enough money to support your family and do the things you want to do. But I think it really comes down to enjoying what you do and getting excited about waking up every morning and to do the thing you're going to do. Because, listen, most of us spend most of our time at work. So the last thing you need to be doing is working somewhere that you don't enjoy. Because if you're doing that, that's going to be miserable for you. It's going to be miserable for everybody else. So find that passion. Focus on that passion, and once you're there, just stick with it.
That's good advice, man. Really good. Enjoy what you do. I've asked you about marriage advice. How about raising kids? What would you give advice on raising kids? You got two wonderful daughters.
I do. I do.
What have you learned? What advice would you give?
What I learned is I have a great wife, and she is amazing at raising our daughters. Obviously, I'm very close with them, and I like to try to just be there to lead by example. What I have learned is every time I've tried to give them advice, it's not that they push back. It's just that, yeah, they listen. But what I have learned is that most people learn from experience more than they do anything else. So yeah, they'll listen to you a little bit. They may even hear what their friends say, but when they actually experience it themselves, whatever that thing may be that they're learning, they take it to heart a little bit more. So sometimes you just have to be there. You have to just show up. You have to just listen to what they're talking about. When they ask you that question, be there to not be not with someone where you're preaching to them. You can't be somebody who's there that's sickly giving them advice. Sometimes you just gotta be willing to be open-minded to listen to their side of it a little bit. Give them a seat at the table, give them an ear. Anytime you do that, I think they're going to be more apt to take in what you're saying.
Good advice.
And I think they're still learning. I will have to say, my daughter, who's in college now, I have found her asking a little bit more questions about things now. Because again, she's now had the opportunity for the last 6 months to be in college by herself, having to make decisions. Every decision we can't make for her. So those scenarios comes up where she's like, oh man, it'd be nice to have my mom and dad here. Let me reach out to them and try to get an answer for them, because I know they've been there. And I think that's the best advice, is just be there for them when they need you.
Yeah. Do you lean them towards the construction business, or do you give them runway to do what you did to figure it out?
Yeah, definitely runway to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I give them the opportunity. I've had them come to my office and work a little bit in the summer, a week here, a day there, whatever, just so they can see it. And I think the biggest thing that I've started doing probably the last 5 years is just talking about it a little bit. Share the successes. Like for example, bid day. I mentioned the process of how that works, because literally what happens is at 2:15 the bids come across the table. They scroll through and we can look at it really quick and see, oh gosh, we were low on these 5 jobs. A lot of times the first thing I do after that is I'll send a group text to the family and says, hey guys, we picked up 5 jobs today, or whatever. And so just sharing in those successes, but also sharing in the challenges. If we get a scenario that comes up where you have somebody that gets injured on a job, or maybe we lost a bid, or whatever the case may be, is sharing that with them too, so that they feel like they have some ownership in what's going on. It's just not, oh gosh, that's just what dad does, he goes over there, but where they understand, one, the lingo, they understand what we do. And I think by doing that, hopefully, one day they maybe have some interest in doing what we're doing. But if they don't, that's okay too.
Shawn, it's easy to see why you're successful in all aspects of your life, man. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Autry. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Whatever you do in life, go do it right, go enjoy it. And like Shawn said, success comes in a lot of different forms. Family, business, enjoy what you do. God gives us a life, go make something out of it.